gonna go live like right now. Oh, okay. It's gonna go live. I'm gonna wait for a few people to come on first. I'm gonna share it in a bunch of places. So I have 2 accounts because I always get blocked. I'm always in Facebook jail.
Who the freak is putting you in Facebook jail?
Well, this time it's my fault. This time it was my fault. I overshared too quickly, like rapid fire one after another, and so I got jailed. So there are people joining. Hey, who's watching? I can't see anything right now. I'm gonna have to do it from my. Hold on, you guys. I'm sharing this everywhere first before I make this happen. God, I'm so horrible at this. Okay, so we're gonna share this. We're gonna share this on my page. We're gonna then share this in the group. Who's that? Hi, Michael! Thank you for stopping by, my man. Let's see. Where am I doing this? This is gonna go into the group. Okay, cool. All right. So I'm just waiting on a few people. Hi, Amani. How's everybody doing? Okay. So I'm not going to, you know what? I'm going to try my best. I'm not going to be able to see too much from where you are because I'm in New York City with Phoenix. And I'm so excited. So I have my phone on a tripod, like far, far away. Hi, honey. My husband's here.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Meet you guys. All right. So let's do the introduction first, and then we will kick it off. Hi, Mom. Hi, Madrina. Okay. Here we go. So Phoenix is an ordained shrine priestess, oracle, and polytheist nun devoted to Eros, Hermes, Psyche, and Erotes, and the Erotes. She started her spiritual journey as a Wiccan 16 years ago, but eventually branched out on her own when she found that no one else could help her develop a satisfying relationship with her gods. Taking a leap of faith, she placed herself into their care and trusted she would find guidance directly from them. She became a solitary practitioner in 2007 and gradually explored devotional polytheism and rituals where she finally started to feel a true connection to her gods. In 2014, she devoted her life to them completely and now follows a monastic practice. Phoenix has spent a great deal of time studying the mythologies of her gods, seeking answers to their great mysteries, and her practice revolves heavily around rituals, personifying her gods' virtues in her daily life, and embodying the joy of devotion. Phoenix, welcome. I know this is weird, right, to see everything.
I just want to make sure that no one's saying, I can't hear.
Oh, can you guys hear us okay? Give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear us okay, because my phone is far. And I'm trying my very best to project, okay? So just give me a thumbs up. I'll wait for that.
It's always good to check the audio,
yeah,
right?
For sure. Good call.
Before you launch.
Good call.
Into...
People are just still joining. Come on, guys. Give me a thumbs up. Okay, we got a couple of thumbs up. Awesome.
All right.
Hear us. So, Phoenix.
So... It's been 5 years.
5 years. Okay,
and a lot has changed in 5 years.
You guys don't know this, but Phoenix here is one of my bestest friends. But the problem is we hardly get a chance to see each other. And this has been the first time we've seen each other in 5 years. So
momentous occasion.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So the reason why I wanted to, have a discussion with you and why I invited you on was because, number one, since the moment I met you, I've always admired you. I really have. I look up to you. Whenever we're together, it's like I'm a little kid sitting on the floor just watching someone as they tell me stories and like, it's like, when a little girl watches her mother put on makeup, it's like that, but with you and your rituals and your gods. It's like me watching someone just like engage in everything, and it's helped me evolve and grow as a spiritual person too. There have been moments where I'm like, what would Phoenix do? You know what I mean? So
wow,
that has always been, it's always been like that. So first of all, I know that your practice is, for the most part, private. I mean, you don't really have a Facebook. You're not really out there talking about what you do. You're, kind of a private person. So what made you say yes to me when I invited you to do this?
Well, one, you asked. And, if I could speak, with you, I'd love to speak with you. But the reason why I said yes is because I remember when I started in 2002, how there was little to nothing. And now it's so great that we have the internet and so many people out there coming out and talking about their practice. But there was no one to really guide me with the way that I wanted to worship my gods. And I feel that just speaking to you and at least talking about certain terms and bringing it out there for people, at least will give them a broader frame of reference to work with. Because a lot of the time our experiences are based upon our beliefs. Mm-hmm. And if you don't even know what you're looking for, you can't even begin to journey.
Right. And
so the reason why I wanted to talk to you was just to help get more word out there, if you will, that this is a choice for people. It's not everybody's choice, but it is a choice. And the more choices we know, the more we can explore our souls to our fullest capacity, which is why we're even here,
Fact.
Yeah. So that's why I said yes, because I wanted to just share some of my experiences, see if they would in any way help people with their own experiences, maybe ring a few bells, maybe challenge a few people and what they believe in. And my hope tonight is to just ask people to have an open mind and to really just in that openness, just if I'm saying anything, that either strikes true to you or challenges you, that you look at that and walk away with something new to kind of chew on in your head.
For sure. I'm glad you said yes. I'm so glad you said yes. So we're here. We're in New York City. We're in Phoenix's space. I'm cuddling on this blanket. I'm about to have some Valentine's candy, some leftover Valentine's candy. We're just gonna relax and we're just gonna talk. And one of the things that you said was back in 2002, how you didn't have a lot of frame of reference then. It was just so much digging and clawing and trying to figure out who, what, why, when, and where. Mm-hmm. And I remember those days when all you had was maybe 5 or 6 books in Barnes and Noble, and if you went to some sort of spiritual event, you might have one speaker that speaks on it that's a little different, but there was nothing else out there.
When we met, so this is a funny story, and it must be told. When we met because we both went to the goddess meetup, right?
To a goddess meetup.
And we get there. And me, you, and one other person were the actual only pagans in the room.
Yeah.
Everybody else was there because it was about health. So seeing yourself as a goddess and taking care of your body. But the rest, the
three of us took it literally.
3 of us were like, wait, we're not here to talk about goddesses?
What kind of bullcrap is this?
I felt totally gypped. And that was my feeling from 2002 all the way.
Girl.
Gypped.
Every experience.
Every time you think you found it. Nah.
Nope.
Not yet. Keep trying. And
that's spirit. That spirit just leading you on the way. You'll get there. Okay. You will get there for sure. Oh, thank you for sharing the experiences. You're welcome. Trust me, there's a million more to go.
There's a lot.
So much. Which, by the way, another disclaimer I wanted to tell you guys, we are not putting a time limit on this. I mean, to an extent. I mean, I don't want to keep you guys here until the wee hours of the morning, but I just want to talk until we have exhausted what we needed to say, because I think it's so important. So in your introduction, you are, oh my goodness, you're a shrine priestess, you're an oracle, you are a devotee to all of these gods, and there's so much that you're doing. Can you kind of break that down for us? So what is a shrine priestess? Okay. What is that?
That's a good question. So a shrine priestess is a little different from a temple priest or priestess. So a good friend of mine, his name is Andrew, he taught me what those differences mean. So a temple is a structure that the gods have chosen the location and you build it to their specifications, like in the old days when we had temples in like ancient Greece or Egypt or wherever we were. And it's a full-time job in that sense. Like you basically, like a priest in a church. You know, it's like that. That's a temple priest.
Okay.
For the most part. Now, in modern day, that's very difficult because a lot of people also have to have jobs.
You gotta pay rent, girl.
Right, you gotta pay the rent. We don't, have that community anymore. Although there are people out there that are trying to do it, which is fabulous. And trying, I think, to expand what that definition means. But when I decided I was going to be a shrine priestess, a shrine is basically something that you build just for the god. So one of the ways that my friend described it was an altar is a working space for people. Now, you don't have to agree with any of this, but I like the way that he put it. So I'm going to share it because I thought it was so fabulous how he put it. An altar is like if you're a witch or, if you're working like on a spell or any kind of working at all, that's where you work, right? An offering table is where you put your offerings. A shrine is basically a table or a shelf, can be just a shelf, and that is the god's sacred image. And you can have either like a large table, like I do, that has a whole bunch of their statues on it, and that's a shrine. And everything on that shrine belongs to the god, or the gods. So once you put it on there, it's not yours anymore.
It's not yours.
So if you give them a piece of jewelry, which by the way, I learned that in 2013, that I can give jewelry, and that was like, wow, really? I'm going to start giving them jewelry like right now. And I put them around their statues, and that's a gift to that deity. So that's what a shrine is. A shrine is basically devoting yourself to the upkeep of a sacred space for the deity. Now, how does that differ from a temple? A temple is where we go to worship. A shrine is more owned by the god, is the way that he put it.
Okay.
So since I knew I wasn't opening a temple for public use, I just don't have that kind of money, I'm sorry to say. I decided to be a shrine priestess and dedicate myself to giving offerings every day and creating a sacred space to bridge the gap between the worlds.
And the shrine, because I know in some cultures, the altar or the shrine would be a place that actually houses those spirits or houses those gods. Is that true in your tradition and your path as well? Is that a place for them to come down and stay? Interesting. So that seems to be a pretty congruent idea among cultures. Very interesting.
It's also a place of focus because you're building this place. It's basically, as humans, we need a lot of these, what I call props, to get us into the mindset of lifting us out of our mundane existence and getting us into that sacred space. And that's not easy to do without doing certain things. A shrine is dedicated to that purpose. It's always up if you can. If it's possible to always have it up, it's always up. There are such things as portable shrines.
Right.
It's
a lot more upkeep because you got to keep taking it down, putting it back.
Right, exactly.
Right.
But if you can have like a shrine room in your house or even a shrine table in your house, that's where when you go in front of that table and you close your eyes, you are in the presence of your God in that moment. And it's always, that's partially what its purpose is.
I want to come back to this because I would love to know how to build a shrine, because I know it's different in different cultures. But first, I also want to get a gauge of, what it is that you believe in that you would then make a shrine of, right? So
that's a perfect way to put it. Actually.
Yeah. So before we get into that, though, I'm glad that you had said a few minutes ago. You had said that we need sort of like these props that help us get into the head space and into that elevated place, right? And it's interesting because in a lot of books and in a lot of YouTube videos and in a lot of advice that are given by elders, you'll more often than not hear the advice of, don't buy too much stuff. Don't waste your money. Don't waste your time. Don't do that. You just need a glass of water, you just need this. And as much as I understand that because number one, if you're new and you don't have a job, you might be 14, 15 years old, it's hard for you to obtain those tools.
Yes, it is.
But at the same time, there is a usefulness to that. There is a purpose for those tools. They aren't just there for the fancy schmancy of having it.
They're not. And understanding what they're for helps with that. Because a lot of times we use stuff and if we don't get it, it almost misses the point.
Right.
Like incense. Some of us can't burn incense depending on where we are. But one of the great things about incense is that, and they've actually studied this scientifically, it raises the vibration of a space.
It sure does.
That's absolutely essential when trying to create a sacred mindset.
Right.
Even if you don't have anything but your own bedroom or, a small room. Now, but some people can't burn incense because of the laws in their apartment or anything like that. So you take other steps to create a sacred space. So if you can't create a sacred space with incense, then make holy water and bless yourself. Put on something special that's reserved just for that occasion of, I'm going to commune with my gods. This will help. It's about transitioning your mind from here to here.
From the mundane to the spiritual, correct.
And the more that you can be more mindful of that, the more you almost become a living shrine yourself. And you focus that energy and you move yourself into that sacred space. That being said, I have discovered, in my own practices that there is a lot to be said for using incense and for using real candles. Real candles,
y'all.
the spirits of and part of that is because you're using the elements.
The elements.
And if you are using all the elements, then you're really being able to create that sacred space. So like a candle is fire, and that's very cleansing. It's very purifying. It's very dangerous. Gotta respect the fire, But
gotta respect the fire.
We all respect the fire, And certain incenses, but it's also about those things can be used as offerings. Like incense can be used as an offering for a god, as well as a cup of water. If you have nothing, if you were poor as a church mouse and you have nothing, you can at least buy a special glass. You can get one for 99 cents in the 99-cent store. This is my God's glass, or the God's glass, and I will only use it for offerings. And that's it. And that's part of how you start to do it, this is just for them. This plate is just for them. This bowl is, whatever it is, this is just for them.
This outfit is the only thing I'm going to wear.
Exactly.
Just for them.
Just for them. That's how you do it. And that's how you help to create that sacred space.
And that's a ritual as well.
It is.
A lot of people don't realize that the act of, going to get that water, going to change into that outfit, lighting that incense, saying that prayer in a certain order, in whatever order you do, as long as it's the same order or as long as it's that same process, it's a ritual. And the more you do it, the more charged it becomes.
Exactly.
And that space becomes a living space. And
I'll tell you a little secret.
Yeah.
It takes 30 days to create a sacred space. If you do it every day.
Kind of like taking a vitamin, right? Before it starts working.
Right.
30 days.
Everything takes 30 days.
Everything takes 30
days.
days.
It takes 21 days for a human to develop a habit. 21 days to break a habit. And 30 days for a space to feel different. Yeah. Another thing that my friend taught me is if you do decide to create a shrine room, to treat it like a shrine room. To bow at the entrance and ask the room to rise up and be this shrine for you. And that's without incense, it's without candles, it's without any of that. I personally have all that because I need it in that regard, because I have noticed the difference in the energy.
Right.
Like as you get more used to doing this, you will feel the nuances of energy. And a lot of the time, a lot of the things that the elders talk about is how to create those sacred spaces, because you have to it's kind of like spiritual cleansing. So you have to get rid of all the lower energies in the room before you can. A bell works great too. The purer the bell, the better. The higher the tone, the better. Will also work for those purposes. And a lot of books and things like that talk about different ways on how to establish.
Yeah, you got to give us a list. You got to give us a list of books for sure.
Many. Well, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish too. Like if you're trying to follow a certain tradition, like if you want to follow the Hellenic path.
Which is your path.
It is my path, but I wouldn't call myself a Hellenic polytheist.
Okay.
Mainly because my ritual is not strictly Hellenic.
Okay.
Although, by studying the Hellenic is what got me away from Wicca and more connected to my deities. I would describe myself more as a devotional polytheist.
What does that mean?
So a devotional polytheist, so first, let's break down what polytheist is, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So polytheist is somebody who believes that there are many gods with their own agency. So a lot of people believe that the gods, that, there's many gods means they are the same, they are different faces for one god.
Yeah, it's a very Jungian concept.
It is very Jungian, and
Joseph Campbell and all them with this idea.
I love the archetypes.
I love the archetypal theory too.
I love them. But where we get caught up is we don't use the word "and" enough. We figure something out, and we're like, "That's it," and we stay.
Right.
And that's a problem, because that's not evolution. That's not growing. That's not learning more of the deeper nuances of things. We have to use the word "and." Gods are represented in archetypes, and they are also many, many, many deities with their own agency, their own personalities, their own names. No more than, we're both human, but,
right.
You can't learn all about what a human is just by looking at
one
Leilani, right?
Right.
You can't do that. You have to look at a whole bunch of people, and even then you're not going to get the whole glimpse. It's all about, and in my own practice, in my own experiences, when I was first starting out in 2002, they taught me that all gods are one god, all goddesses are one goddess.
I remember.
And I was like, okay, because what was I to?
That was a huge deal back then.
Yes, back then especially. And it wasn't until 2010 when I picked up, because of you, I picked up Judika Iles's book.
Judika Iles! Woo!
She wrote the Encyclopedia of Spirits.
Yes.
I believe is what it's called. And in the beginning, she has this guidebook, a guideline about how to work with spirits, right? And she includes gods in the terminology of spirits, which is fine. So, and she wrote that there are many gods with different agency, and that's what this book is about. Because it basically was that, she wrote different entries for each individual deity and how
their feast day,
their feast days, like
everything.
Colors.
That's an amazing book.
Great, like offerings to give that particular god, how to build a shrine to them.
Right.
And I was like, what? Wait, gods are individual? And that was like, boom! It was earth-shattering moment right there.
Wow.
And I would never have even thought that if I hadn't picked up that book.
Wow.
And once I was able to do that was when I was able to really connect to my gods. Because remember I was saying, our beliefs, our experiences are fed by our beliefs. It starts with what you believe, and then you'll have the experience. And it's not because you're tricking yourself. It's because even if you have the experience that there are many gods, if you're like, no, there's not, you won't experience it that way because you don't believe. And they're connected. They're very, very strongly connected in that way. Mm. So our job, I think, as humans, is to read as much as we can and open our minds up to many different kinds of possibilities. That's what beliefs are. Right. And so that they have more ability to talk to us.
It's also kind of like this idea of like expanding your spiritual vocabulary.
Exactly.
The more you read, the more you learn, the more you sit in meditation and figure out your own symbols. Mm-hmm. The more you spend time figuring out your dreams and what the symbols are that are going on in your dreams. It's all a part of building that spiritual language. So when it comes time to communicate with your spirits or with your gods, they have an avenue in which to talk to you through.
And to that point, one of the very first things we have to do, in my experience, has been, you've got to figure out who you are first.
Yeah.
You've got to. It's absolutely essential, because then you won't be able to make out you from
something else.
Something else.
Exactly.
So if you don't know yourself in and out and have the courage to face that, you know, because a lot of us don't do it because we're afraid of what we're going to find in the underworld, in our own shadows. One of the things I've discovered with Psyche's myth, it's Psyche for the Latin, but I use the ancient Greek word for her, so I call her Psyche, is that her tasks are actually how the soul journeys to making themselves ready for the gods.
Are you able to slightly condense the story of Psyche for us?
A little bit. Well, for those that don't know the myth of Eros and Psyche.
It's an awesome myth.
It is an awesome myth, and actually a lot of fairy tales, like Beauty and the Beast and Cinderella, were actually inspired by the Psyche and Eros.
Oh, so now that I didn't know.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
A lot of fairy tales, and then going forward, romance novels and so on later on in life. There's a lot of stories that repeat the same mythologies a little bit, because myths are very powerful.
That whole forbidden thing, forbidden love, and coming back, and trials, and
yeah. Well, it's also the hero's journey, right? That you know the hero with
for the woman
faces.
this time too.
Yes,
which makes it so much cooler.
And the thing about a woman's myth, hero wise, is a hero slays the dragon. A woman will ride on the dragon's back. Like that's the
totally
main...
Khaleesi. Totally.
That's what and that's part of the soul's journey. The soul's journey is not to slay the dragon. It's to become one with the dragon by riding on its back. The dragon is your shadows, what you're afraid of facing, you know, about yourself. So as some of you may know, this myth of Eros and Psyche is that she was a beautiful princess who was envied by the goddess Aphrodite for her beauty. But the bigger picture, the deeper version of that, is it wasn't that she was jealous of a mortal girl, is that this mortal girl was being given honors that were properly due to a goddess. And that's just not right. That is not maintaining sacred balance. That's not right relationship with deity. So she calls upon her son to punish the girl, and Eros sees the girl and falls in love with her. And then her parents go to the Oracle of Apollo, and they say, and the Oracle of Apollo says, your daughter is not meant for any mortal groom. She must be put on top of this mountain where her dragon bridegroom will come and claim her. And then she's brought up there thinking she's going to die, but instead she's taken by the god Zephyr down into this magical valley, and she's in this beautiful palace with invisible servants, and then her husband comes to her nightly, but she's not allowed to look at him. But eventually her jealous sisters convince her to. And when she lights the lamp, she sees that she's actually married to the god of love. And she accidentally wakes him by spilling oil on him, yikes, and he flies away. Her journey at that point is to reunite with him. And she eventually doesn't go right away to Aphrodite, but eventually she has no choice but to face her if she wants to get Eros back. And Aphrodite puts her through 4 tests, because Aphrodite is the initiator. And this is like when a lot of people just read the myth and not like try to see the undertones of mythology straight. It's like, oh, this is such a harpy. Like, why don't you just let her be with your son and be done? Like, really?
Right.
But that's not what the myth is actually about. The myth is about the journey the soul has to take to be purified by trials as humans in order to be reunited with the divine. With our who we truly are, both the gods as well as our own true divine nature. So the 4 tasks are the sorting of the seeds. So she has to sort all these thousands of seeds, 6 different kinds. She has to put them in their own individual places before sundown, and ants come and help her. So a wonderful book that I read to understand more about this myth was called Psyche's Seeds. It was written by a woman who's a psychologist, and she believed in soul-based psychology.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, she's like, it's not just about the mind. And if you notice, psychology is actually taken from Psyche's name. It means the study of the soul. Originally, that's what it meant, was the study of the soul. And actually, it's through psychology that we're able to help even connect to deeper parts of ourselves without condemnation. You know, back probably before psychology, it was a lot harder to accept a lot of these different things about ourselves without psychology. So sorting the seeds is basically, who are you? What's important to you that you're willing to get rid of? What is it that you have to keep? So the next part is she has to gather these golden fleece from these rams. These rams are human flesh tearing apart. You know, they'll eat you up. Yeah. And the river god tells her, the reed in the river tells her how to do it by waiting until they calm down and are asleep. And then she can gather their fleece from the different bushes nearby instead of like trying to approach them directly.
Right.
Because she had to get a piece of wool from each sheep.
Wow.
And that is basically the emotions, because it's water, and the rams represent like this fiery, masculine, crazy energy, if you will. And not only using her feminine wiles of patience and waiting to get there, but also to face her own emotional core. Like, who are you emotionally? That's so important, by the way. Like, being able to be honest with yourself about who you are emotionally is an absolute crucial step when it comes to the journey of the soul. Because your emotions is how your soul speaks to you. Neil Donald Walsh said that this, in his book, Conversations with God, feelings are the language of the soul. And there is so much truth in that. Because if you don't know who you are by how you feel, then you're never going to be able to get past certain things, certain truths that you need to see.
That's true.
Then the third task was she had to take a crystal jar that Aphrodite gave her and go to the mouth of the river of Styx. So in Greek mythology, the river of Styx is the river of life and death. And she gets the water, and it's not just sitting there flowing, you know. And it's the most sacred river in Greek mythology. If the gods swear by the river Styx, it is a vow they have to keep. That's how sacred this is, because of what it represents. It represents the balance between life and death. So in the mythology, the mouth of the river, which is its source, right? It's surrounded by like these dragons and snakes, and all these things will kill her. And like, she's like, what am I going to do? But the eagle of Zeus comes and he helps her get the water. So that part of the myth is about the urn is who you are, and what is your portion of the river of life and death. Who are you in your responsibility? Like, what is it that you came to do? But only that. You know, a lot of us get overwhelmed by all the problems in the world. How do we do, what can one person do? By recognizing your one task, if each person recognized that, the world would change overnight. You know, and then finally, the fourth task, which is the worst one of all, is to go into the underworld and get a box that Aphrodite gives her, and go into the underworld and retrieve a bit of Persephone's beauty, who's the queen of the underworld. And
how the heck am I supposed to do that?
Right, and she's like fully mortal. Like a lot of the
don't
other.
You have to die to get there?
Well, she says that too. Like, I think I have to kill myself right now. But she's told by either Hermes or Eros, depending on which version of the myth you read, how to get to the underworld and come back safely. So there's a cave that she enters into, and it leads her into the underworld, and she's not allowed to talk to anybody or show any pity to these people because they're being punished by the gods for a reason, and you can't interfere with that no matter how much your compassion calls you to. And basically then she gets to Persephone, and she gets the beauty. But when she gets back out, she opens the box because she thinks that she is not beautiful enough for Eros. And she's not supposed to open the box. And when she does, this is very Sleeping Beauty, when she does, it puts her into a deep sleep, and she's almost dead. At that moment, Jacqueline Smalls, who wrote the book Psyche Seeds, she says it was Psyche at that moment claiming her own divinity. And I actually kind of see that. You know, I see that as what was actually happening there. Because if you just read it on the surface, it's like, well, what the hell are you doing? They told you not to open the box. Right. Don't open the box. Like, seriously.
Stupid mortal.
But in that moment, she was claiming something for herself by daring to reach into the box. But most importantly, by going into the underworld, she's facing her own shadows. She's facing her own demons and letting the fire of the underworld, if you will, burn those things away. Another thing about the seeds is they all represent the elements. So, the tasks. So the task of earth is in the seeds. The task of water, like feeling out who you are emotionally, was in the gathering of the fleece with the rams. The task of air was using using your mind, because it's the eagle that helps her, and the eagle is a symbol of air. Is the task of the element of air. And then finally, the task of fire is to go into the underworld, to burn away everything else that no longer serves you.
And of course, that's exhausting. So
it's exhausting. It's challenging.
You fall into it.
At some point, everybody goes into the underworld. And it might be more than once in a lifetime, because it's whatever it is you have to face to get to that authentic place of who you really are.
Right.
And then once you've done all that, now you are ready for true engagement with the gods. So one of my favorite books is Till We Have Faces. And it's C.S. Lewis. And it's a retelling of the Eros and Psyche myth. And he does a tremendously fabulous job with this book. And it's actually one of the things I've used as a mantra for understanding my own journey with the gods. And part of it is because of what she says at the end, when she is forced, not Psyche in the book, it's the sister of Psyche that's actually telling the story. And what happens is, at the end, the sister is forced to face the gods with this book that she's been writing, because Till We Have Faces is her version of what happens.
Oh, that's cool.
In the myth, right?
Yeah. So
what she says at the end was she's forced to read the book, and it's different. I won't ruin it for anybody, but because it's an experience just to read it, truly. But what she says is what I feel is why we must go through this purification process with the soul. And what it is she says, the complaint was the answer. To have heard myself making it was to be answered. Lightly men talk of saying what they mean. When the time comes to you at which you will be forced at last to utter the speech which has lain at the center of your soul for years, which you have all that time idiot-like been saying over and over, you'll not talk about the joy of words. I saw well why the gods do not speak to us openly, nor let us answer, till that word can be dug out of us. Why should they hear the babble that we think we mean? How can they meet us face to face till we have faces?
Wow.
And that to me
wow.
is a big part of the polytheistic path. It's all about getting to that place so that we can then have true engagement with the gods. And that's really what polytheism is all about. Like to me, at its heart, it's about engagement with the gods and having a relationship with the gods. And now think about any relationship you have with like a human being. You have to be real, right?
Have to be real.
You have to be real.
Yeah.
So,
and it has to be nurtured.
It has to be nurtured. It has to be real.
And two people need to come at it from a perspective of, I know me, you know you, and when we get together, we can then know each other because we know ourselves.
Well, it's also, that's why it's important to recognize the gods do have an agenda of their own. They have their own job to do, their own, what are they doing for their own souls? And when we come together, those agendas sort of come together too. And that's a big part of engagement with the gods, with polytheism. So with polytheism, I also feel there's certain ritualistic aspects to polytheism that makes it distinct from other different religions. And one of the things that I feel is this idea of offerings. I know, it sounds weird, right? But I swear to you, up until 2013, I didn't really understand that I can give my gods a plate of food or a glass of wine. Like, that just wasn't clicking for me over the years until I actually saw a polytheistic ritual. And then, like, this one gap that was keeping me from, like, truly clicking into it was finally filled, and then everything just started to happen.
And what does offering do in this polytheistic path, what does that actually do for the connection? How is that, like, why are you doing it?
That's a good question. So, different people tell you different things. Some people will say that we give offerings to the gods because it is their honor to receive offerings from us. That's very valid. Another thing that people say is because we're trying to bridge the gap between us and the deity. The way I look at offerings is similar to that. An offering bridges the gap between our worlds. It's a bridge. That's how I look at it. When I give an offering to my gods, I am reaching out to them, and they are reaching back out to me, because I'm giving them something from this world, and they're making it a part of their world by taking it. So it becomes that connection. I also, for me, my offerings are how I express my love for my gods. Because, like, when I give you a gift, or, you know, when you give a friend a gift, why do you do it? You do it so that you can see the joy in a friend's eyes. It strengthens the relationship, not because you're giving them something and they're like, oh, thank you for this thing, you know, like, and you're bribing their love. You know, it's about expressing your love for that God. To me, when I give an offering, that's what I'm doing. I am experiencing my love for them by pouring a glass of wine, by lighting incense, by giving them a cup of water, by giving them cookies or a part of my meal, or whatever it is that I'm doing. I am using that moment to experience love, because love is not what is given to you. It's what you experience. It's what you give out is what love, that's how you know love. You know, in Sound of Music, there's a line that says, it's not in the movie for some reason, but Julie Andrews sings in the soundtrack. She says, love in your heart wasn't put there to stay. Love isn't love till you give it away. And that has certainly been my experience when I give an offering. Some people, you know, like, so depending on the religion that you're talking about, the spirituality, offerings are about reciprocity. And I believe that too. But from a mystical standpoint, so a mystic is somebody who is passionately in love with their gods. And that's what they're trying to experience. They're trying to experience the ecstasy, the bliss, the complete, utter surrender to deity. And for me, to give an offering because I want you to like me is not clean. So I give an offering because I want to experience loving them. So it's a gift. And it's the same thing with when you put a necklace around the statue's neck, or you give them roses or any kind of flower, or you dedicate a candle to them and you light it.
Are there other ways? Are there other ways to experience that ecstasy that you brought up with regards to mystics? Are there other ways in which you experience that with your path? Or is it just like a different thing? Singing
for them. It has to be in here. You have to know that you are purposely doing this. You know, It doesn't just happen. You have to, you know, an archer doesn't hit a target if he doesn't know what his target is.
Yeah. It's true. You have to see it, you have to know, you have to believe that it's there. You have to believe that you'll get it. That's another thing too.
that as well.
Yeah.
And it's all about experiencing that just complete and utter connection, because you are opening your heart. And I think that is one of the great things about worshiping the gods, is that the gods give you an opportunity to really experience how much love you are capable of, more than you think. I mean, we have all our relationships do that. You know, we have, you know, love for the earth. We should at least. You know, love for each other. All of our relationships give us that, you know, opportunity. And the same thing is with the gods. We have an opportunity to love them. And that's one way to do it. A song can be an offering. You can say, I'm going to sing this song for you. There's nothing else. Like, you know, a friend of mine actually taught me that singing helps cleanse you.
It sure does.
You know, I don't know what it is about it. I don't know if it's a vibrational thing.
It just cleans out the soul.
It does. It really does. It really cleans out the soul. And I remember once in 2014 when as I became more dedicated to my gods, my purification standards were really high because Psyche is a very pure deity. And I wasn't allowed to eat certain things at the time, and I wasn't allowed to be around cigarette smoke. And I walked into someone smoking, and I was like, oh, gross. And I felt myself plummet, and I was on my way to work, so I didn't have any water, I didn't have incense, I didn't have anything. So I started to sing, and it lifted me. It helped.
Wow. You know, speaking of that, because I'm always curious about this, and I know there's a lot of newbie practitioners out there. I know there's a lot of solitary practitioners out there that don't really have a lot of guidance, and they're trying to figure out what their path is, what they want to do. And this idea of polytheism and this idea of pantheons, right? Because remember in the Wiccan, when we all started with the Silver Raven Wolf Wiccan stuff, and she talked about pantheons and this idea of, you know, picking a pantheon that you connect to and going with that. And that can be really hard for like a new person. So you had mentioned just a few seconds ago, you know, when working with your gods, you know, they had certain taboos, certain things that they didn't allow you to do, certain things that they wanted you to do. So when you're out there and you're exploring these pantheons and you're trying to figure out what works for you, how do you know when a god is communicating to you or telling you, you know, don't eat this, or yes, I want this for my offering, or like how do you even start with what's up with that?
No,
that's really interesting.
It's not easy, and this is why you have to know yourself.
Right.
It's essential, right? Because then.
So do you encourage shadow work before even taking that step towards?
You can do it around the same time because the gods will push you to it if you're not doing it.
I agree with that.
You can, you know, and as a matter of fact, you can be doing that work and then they'll come along and be like, this is great, you did great, but you missed this whole section over here. We're totally going to shove it in your face right now because this is keeping you from us. You have to face it. Like my thing was expressing my anger. I was not very good at it. And so they told me, you have to express anger.
So they gave you things to be angry about.
Yeah, pretty much. They gave me things to be pissed about, and I had to speak my truth. And that's actually a big Hermes connection. I told you in private that with my three main deities, which is Eros, Psyche, and Hermes, I could lay out the path of the soul with the three of them. And one of the ways that I do that is Psyche is, you know, basically who I look up to. She was my mentor, you know, she did it, you know, kind of thing. And so I modeled a lot of myself after her because we all need a model for a little while until we figure out our own way of doing things. Right. And I did that with her, and Hermes taught me to communicate because a lot of the soul path is chakra work too, right? And if you get stuck here, you're not going any higher. This is the throat chakra, and this is your truth. This is how we speak or know our truth. Even if it's writing, it's still here. And Hermes is the guide because he helps to communicate what the gods want and desire from you in order to help you achieve this higher state of being, this you know, purification of the soul or raising of the soul or soul purpose or whatever it is that works for a person. And Eros is the goal. Okay. To truly, completely love and connect completely is the goal. Like Eros is not just the god of erotic love. He's the god of spiritual love too. It is Eros that inspires us to seek out the gods. It's not just, you know, sexy time stuff. It's also the need to connect with others is also Eros. And to me, the Erotes, like the Hedone is the daughter of Eros and Psyche, that's bliss. That's what you get to when you've done all that and you finish at the end. When you've lined all this and you've connected and you are your authentic self, you have reached a state of bliss. And that's how the myth and studying the myth and constantly trying to figure that out, I have seen that. In some versions of the myth, Hermes is a part of Psyche's myth. He actually is the one who brings her up to Mount Olympus to receive the cup of ambrosia to become a goddess at the end. So in this journey in terms of learning yourself, right, and encouraging shadow work and encouraging your alignment, right,
can you also utilize, like, while you're doing all of that, can you also utilize divination during that time
Absolutely.
to kind of help decipher all this communication that's happening? Because remember, we were talking about kind of building up your spiritual vocabulary and
right.
building up your spiritual library so that the gods can come and speak to you in the most easiest way that you can understand. So throughout all of that, I think divination also will allow that expansion of that spiritual vocabulary as well, because you're, you're just, do you think that that's another good process to go through, or should that be later on, like when you're more...
It's hard to say when you should be using divination.
I know, because every culture is different about that. A lot of people don't encourage that for newbies. They're like, no, don't mess with the divination just yet because it opens up X, Y, and Z. And then there's other places that say, no, starting off with that and allowing yourself to know what's your ego and what's not, what's out there, you know?
Okay, so you asked before how I knew. So I'm going to tell you how I knew.
How did you know?
It should answer some of the questions that you're asking me. So how I knew was multifaceted. Back then I had a diviner that I could go to, which was great. When I had the big questions, my diviner would help me figure it out. But most of us don't have that. And before that, I didn't have that either. And I only had that for a little while. I was also taught Hermes Oracle, which is the 3 coins system that you can probably Google it and look it up, and they have some instructions about it out there. It comes from ancient times. I forget, it was either dice or pebbles that they used in ancient times. But either way, there was a Hermes Oracle, and it's very easy to understand. There was that. But when I first started out with the polytheistic path and I was given an oracle, I wasn't allowed to use the oracle at first. Why? Because you don't want to develop a reliance on the oracle and not learn your own intuition. Because if you become too reliant on an oracle system, you're not using the other muscles that you have, the spiritual muscles that you have. So
that's a big reason why they usually deter.
And I happen to agree with that until you've built up enough trust in your own instincts to really then be able to go to an oracle. Like, there's steps to this. You can't just jump into the ocean and expect to swim, right? There are steps, and it requires patience. It's work. It does require a great deal of patience on your part. It requires, knowing when you're ready to move on to the next step and not taking too much in. It's a commitment. Like, the very first thing we should be doing is the ritual part, is establishing a practice. That's the very, very first thing. And then after that, if you feel that you need guidance because you want to get closer to a particular deity, or you want to honor certain, get closer to that deity by dedicating yourself in a different way and getting, that's when divination should come in.
And those practices,
that's where it happens.
So that developing a practice is different for everyone.
Yes.
So there's no real wrong or right way to go about doing it. As long as you're consistent, you're committed to that practice, and you're doing it every day or every week or whatever you tell yourself to do it.
That's the basics.
The basics.
You've got to do the basics, because then you'll feel the. So to answer the questions, we can get it out of the way, because I'm going to divert. The way that I knew was because I had known myself well enough by that point that I would sense when I was doing something they didn't want me to do. Like, I literally felt the bottom of my stomach drop out.
Wow.
Like, if I was reaching for something, I would feel no, like oh wait, no, there's something wrong with this. We're all born with those instincts. That's how we stayed alive as a species.
Fact.
So we have. It's just a matter of paying attention. A lot of us are so much not paying attention. We drown ourselves, our own inner voice. Your soul is your best guidance, and we drown it out a lot with TV and music and internet and all this mindless stuff, instead of sitting in the quiet and learning your own voice. A lot. And so if you can do that, then you can hear or feel other guidance, like, oh, I shouldn't be eating that. It comes from, it's basically, this is wrong. Like, the best way to put it is, this is wrong.
Right.
But you have to be paying attention.
And that's more of an internal thing. Like, it's not it's not like some sort of external audible voice that's like, no Phoenix, do not eat this, right? It's not. It's more.
It's
of
also
an internal...
energy. It's an energy thing. One of the great things about learning to work with energy, if you will, is to recognize higher versus lower energy. Like if you eat a McDonald's burger, trust me, you're gonna feel
that low.
You're gonna
energy.
feel low. You're gonna feel like crap. Versus if you eat something that's organic, or even something you made yourself, there is a difference in energy, and that's one of the things I don't know if we look at so much.
Yeah.
Is the negative or positive energy of what we consume, not only food wise, but who we surround ourselves with, the friends that we keep, the music we listen to, the TV shows we watch. I swear to you, if I ever watched Bridezilla's, I could feel my spirit plummet. I'm like, I need to not be watching this.
I feel the same way about the Real Housewives of Atlanta. I'm like, oh.
and you can tell, like there was once this movie. It's called Clash of the Titans. There's two. Mm-hmm. The first one from 1981, fabulous. I totally recommend it to everybody. The second one, awful.
Garbage.
It was garbage. I walked out of that theater feeling dirty. That was before I understood. It was like 2010 or 11. That was before I even understood dirty. Like, and I knew I was dirty.
This is what it is.
It feels like film on your skin. You can't get off, and you got to run home and like
shower immediately.
Put on some holy water and kurnups, they call it. I think that's the way they say it in the Greek for the Greeks. So I'm going to say holy water just to be clear.
Right.
And incense and I didn't understand that at all back then. I didn't have an understanding of spiritual pollution back then. It exists. I swear it exists.
The idea of spiritual vampires and all these.
That too.
It's real. And so to kind of come full circle with that, though, what you're really talking about is this. Okay, so yeah, in the beginning, you want to create a practice in which you separate yourself from the mundane and transition into that spiritual. Mm-hmm. And you do that in the beginning to get you into that mindset, to elevate you and to really put you there. Mm-hmm. But as you go on, those lines begin to blur a little bit because, like you said, it's this idea of kind of having these practices all throughout your daily life. So really paying attention to what you eat, what you're listening to, who you're hanging out with.
It's not just when you're in front of your shrine.
You take it with you.
You take it with you. You carry it with you. It becomes who you are. At least that's what I do. That's how I do it. Because I'm totally, completely dedicated to them. So even when I am outside of my space, I take my gods with me in my heart. And it influences how I talk, who I hang out with, what I eat, how I behave at work, the volunteering that I do, because volunteering is a big, big thing. Mm-hmm. It's a very, very important thing to do. All those different things. It's not just the shrine. It's what I do here, and I love it. And I wish I could just stay home and do my shrine work. But another reason why I give offerings, by the way, as part of my duties as a shrine priestess, is to give offerings for my community. So, the idea of that's one of my tasks is to give offerings on behalf of my community. My community didn't ask me to do that, and that's fine. It's what I wish to do. Just because that's what shrine priestesses do. That's what priests do. They give offerings on behalf of their communities as well as, for their own selves.
And the practices that you had spoken about thus far, these are roles of a shrine priestess. You also have another role that was in your biography that I'm very curious about because it's the first time I've ever heard it. This idea of being a monastic nun.
Ah, yes.
And having monastic practices. What is that?
Boom, right?
What is that? Because when I saw that, I was mind blown. Because when I think of monasticism and when I think of nuns, I think Catholicism. I think, you're all covered up. You're in some church somewhere. No one ever sees you. You only come out to get change and stuff for donations for your convent. No sex. I think of all of that. So are any of those traditions kind of cross-threading, or is it a little bit different, or?
Well, that's a complicated question. If you look up pagan monasticism, it's actually out there. There are people...
Pagan monasticism.
Yeah. There are people that are establishing orders now for their gods. I think one of the ones I looked up was the Order of the Hore, I believe it's called. I apologize if I'm not saying it right. I'm not really good with names. But they are out there. There are people that are actually trying to establish like a place that people go, and they devote themselves to a monastic lifestyle. What a monastic lifestyle is, in the bigger sense, is basically dedicating yourself completely to the worship and connection to the gods, to sit in silent contemplation, it's basically a high devotion to deity. Like, this is what you do.
So when you're not working, when you're not paying bills,
well, no,
this is what you do.
Even when I'm paying bills, and even when I am working, I take that with me, because I can't stay home. You know,
Right.
We don't have that kind of world anymore where we take care of our priests and priestesses that way. You know, not for pagans anyway.
That's true. We
You know,
need to change that, you guys.
We don't
for
have
real.
that. So
Yeah.
we still have to go out there and we still have to work. So how do we establish a monastic practice of, you know,
In the 21st century.
in the 21st century for pagans? You know, it's a challenge, and it's one that people are rising to because more people want that. You know, they want to devote themselves to that kind of life. So for me, it's the way that I eat. It's being veiled. So that shows my devotion, and it also is about cleanliness. So I go out veiled, although there has been problems thanks to the recent issues with the current racism in our world right now. Being veiled, I had somebody come up to me while I was veiled and do some sort of Muslim salute. He was drunk.
Oh, wow.
And I was like a little freaked by that.
Yeah.
But so that's now a little bit of a challenge, to going out in public veiled, but it's still important to do because it's part of the devotion that I'm trying to express. So a lot of people veil themselves because they're trying to express that devotion. It's also about cleanliness that God asks you to. There's a wonderful group on Facebook that's all about women who veil for their gods, not just pagans but others as well, and honoring that practice and why they do it, because the God asked them to. Some gods and some goddesses are veiled generally. Hestia, I think, is one of them. Mm-hmm. Like, if you see her statue, she's always veiled. So sometimes someone
It's not covering the face. It's just the
no.
head.
It's just this.
Okay.
It's just this. It's not like the Muslim tradition. Not for me anyway. Some people want to do that. That's fine. But for me, it's just a covering of the head. It's protecting the crown chakra and keeping it clean. And but it's mostly a devotional, an outward experience of devotion to veil, which is why I do it. And plus, Psyche is actually veiled, believe it or not. She's one of those goddesses that veils. So, if you will.
So being a monastic nun doesn't necessarily mean everyone has to do that. If you're a polytheist, it's just this idea of just like kind of extreme devotion, but not so extreme where you're like, you know, whipping and doing and stuff like that. But
that's different.
But
and some people do that too.
Yeah,
but that's not me.
It's like it's just a slightly different situation.
But yeah, it's basically about
option.
It is an option, and it's one that people don't know about because we don't have convents or
pagan convents.
We don't have pagan convents.
Pagan nunneries.
Yeah, we don't have that. So once again, if you don't know, you can't do it. But now that you know it's a choice, and if that's something you want to do, then if that's what you were called to, then you can answer the call. Now you know what it is you were seeking. You know, like kind of thing, if you will. So it's very much with the pagan monasticism. It's very much about living a monastic lifestyle in the sense of shrine priestess and monastic nun kind of go hand in hand because they're similar in terms of the work that you do, in terms of sitting in contemplation and saying certain prayers, you know, the ritual behind it, dedicating yourself to making sure you're getting those rituals taken care of, that is your number one priority in your life before you clean your house or, you know, anything like that. you're taking care of that. Then do or die, this is what you do. Because that's what, other monastic practices do. They are dedicated fully to a practice that is displaying their devotion and connecting to their God.
Right.
So, in my case, I'm being guided by my gods on what it is they want me to do in order to establish that practice. In other cases, if there is an actual community, they create their, what it is that they're trying, that they're doing, I shouldn't say trying, that they're doing to create that monastic lifestyle. So, and some, there's a couple, I think there's one here in New York, I can't remember the name of it right now. I just had it and I lost it. I hate that. But they actually have like a place that they live, and they are actual
awesome.
water.
That's
awesome.
It's
rare.
That is rare. And I wonder how they
financially
keep everything going.
It's also, I don't know if they. This is just me, thinking about it. I don't know in these orders if they're only worshiping. I think it's the order of Kibali. Sibylle, thank you. Yeah. Sorry, I always say Kibali. But don't take my word for it. I'm not sure on that, so I'm sorry. But if you look up pagan monasticism, it's there.
Okay.
It is there for people to explore and take a look at the different ideas that are out there. But there's no order specifically to my particular gods. So I can't join one of these places because I have my particular. I honor all the gods. I think that's important. All gods should be honored just by virtue of the fact that they're gods. But I don't. My particular practice is the devotion to Eros, Hermes, Psyche, and the Erotes because of the path of the soul that I'm following.
Yeah. And it's been very, very reflective in your life. I mean, just kind of sitting on the sidelines, watching from a distance, it's just amazing to watch your transformation and all the things that you have gone through. It's just amazing. I want to get into the nitty gritty in terms of, talking about, just drink some water. Did someone say something? Protecting your head. Yes, this is when they were talking about the veil. Hi, Renee, what's up? Oh my goodness. Yeah, so I want to get into the nitty gritty because I always talk, we love you. I'm always looking on YouTube. I'm always looking on Facebook. I'm in all of these groups. I'm watching all of these conversations that are happening among people.
Which is great because that helps you keep...
Yeah, I'm staying up to date, girl. I'm staying up to date. And what I'm seeing is, number one, polytheism is not talked about. Hardly at all.
Which is weird to me.
It's weird. Maybe I'm in the wrong groups. I don't know. But I don't hear a lot about polytheism. I mean, Hecate is always the big one that you see in a lot of these witch groups.
That's because she's the goddess of witches.
Right. So, I mean, you'll see that a lot. And you'll see,
one of them.
A lot of goddess worship, but it's usually one goddess, one patroness goddess, or one kind of goddess that kind of governs a particular thing that you're doing. So if it's witchcraft, then that's the big one, right? Mm-hmm. So, but it's never, at least I don't see this idea of a pantheon or multiple gods. So what's your opinion? Because now we're getting into opinion, and I'm just throwing some stuff at you in terms of what I'm observing out there. So what's your opinion about the eclectic approach to polytheism, this idea of just kind of picking and choosing gods from different pantheons and working with them and having a table with all of these gods from different parts of the world on there? What's your opinion on that?
My opinion on that is that's what ancient pagans did. Okay. Ancient pagans, they had their pantheon from their hometown, if you will. They may have even had one deity or two deities that were
family and local.
Family deity. I'm talking mainly from a Greek perspective, but they had that. But Hellenic, when you talk Hellenic, you're not just talking about the Greek gods, although that's what a lot of people think. The Hellenic time period was when they were worshiping Greek, Roman, and Egyptian. In that time period after the conquerors of Alexander the Great came through. Okay. He united these different
So it was really a clashing of worlds at that time.
Yeah, you can say that. And they did a lot of like synchronizing with their gods, and you know, like Isis or Aset was also connected to Aphrodite or Aphrodite. You know, like this god looks like this god. You know, there was a lot of that happening too in the ancient times. My opinion is there's many different ways to get to deity. And it depends on what you're trying to do. Some people want to revive the old ways of worshiping the gods, which I am totally for. And if you do that, great. You know, explore the different, you know, reconstructionist or revival paths that are out there. If there's a particular pantheon that calls to you, then do that. You know, read the myths, understand why these paths are the way that they are. And one of the reasons why these paths are the way that they are when you're a reconstructionist is you're trying to recreate what was in the ancient times. But what was in the ancient times was like that because of the culture they had as well.
Right.
They had, you know, just like anything that we have today is influenced by our own modern culture, right? So the biggest thing with like picking and choosing different gods is that some people have a problem with, which I understand, is that they feel that you're not honoring the cultural reasons behind these gods, which I also understand. Right. So one of the things that I was doing when I was picking, you know, because I have my main pantheons, as you know, are the Greek, you know, the Olympians. Those are my people right there. But as my practice has expanded, a polytheist honors all deities. It's not just, and that's something I learned from a lot of my polytheistic friends, because I thought I could only worship my particular set of gods or I'd be disloyal.
Right.
And that's not the case. You can honor all the gods, but when you're working with particular pantheons, you want to look at a lot of their rituals, as much of it as you can find. Because they are, you know, it just helps you to connect better to those gods of that particular pantheon, because of the cultural context behind it. You are walking in the footsteps of people who came before you, and there's power in that. There's power in that knowledge. However, that doesn't mean you can't go forward and change it up a little bit. But if you do that, you're not a Reconstructionist anymore.
Okay.
Because a Reconstructionist is devoted to those particular kinds of rituals. Because that's what you're trying to experience. You're trying to experience the way they did it then. Which is great and valid. But that's not for everybody. A polytheist, there's a very basic form of worship for polytheism. But if you are like a Hellenic polytheist, you should look at it and study the way Hellenic polytheists do it, or Kemetic for the Egyptian, or, you know, I forgot what the Norse one is called right now. I know the Asatru is one of their names. So there's different ways to do that, and there's a reason for that. But that doesn't mean that if you don't want to follow that you can't honor the god in a very basic way. Okay. With polytheism.
So what about like, because I also heard that some, you know, these gods have their own personalities.
Yes.
And some of them can be straight petty, right? And, you know, like, that sometimes they don't get along with each other. Or maybe certain cultures don't mix, like, you know, mixing, you know, I don't know, warring cultures, gods, on the same altar. You know, cultures that have wars with each other. So, like, do you ever find that to be an issue? Has that ever been something that's come up during your time? And what's your opinion on that, if that's...
I will tell you a story.
Okay. I love stories.
So back in 2010, when I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I was trying anyway my best, I had a shrine to Pele. Pele is the Hawaiian goddess of fire, the volcano. A lot of us know Pele. She's pretty famous. And I wanted to bring her shrine into my main shrine room. Back then I lived in a house and I only had my one bedroom. And her shrine was outside of it. because the first time I tried to put her shrine in my bedroom, there was this massive whirlwind of energy of no, no, no. I was like, yikes. Okay, no. But I felt like I wasn't giving her proper honor because she wasn't there.
In the room, right.
So I decided I was going to bring her into the room. I didn't have divination back then. I didn't have anything back then. So I brought her into the room, and the moment I was done, I swear, the moment I was done putting down the last tiny little shell of Hawaii on her shrine, that same whirlwind of energy happened. And I felt that, no, no, no. So I very calmly, I went before my shrines and I said, hey, I prayed, and I said, I love all you guys, but I'm asking you to try to get along, because you are the god, the Greeks are the gods of my soul, but I want to honor Pele as my ancestral goddess because I'm part Hawaiian.
Yeah.
So can you please, for me, just, get along. I know that you are my first allegiance, if you will, but I want to honor Pele. And that worked.
Okay.
Now, I don't honor Pele with the Greek rituals because she's not
obviously,
Greek.
Yeah.
But just to cover the basics with polytheism, there's a wonderful book out there called Devotional Polytheism, which was written by Galina Kraskova. And she actually covers the basics of how to build a devotional practice.
I'll make sure to link that in the comments below.
That's one of the books that I didn't read the book, but I took the class, and that's basically what the book is based on, is the class. But so the basics of a practice. Also, Tess Dawson, who is she helped to revive the Canaanite practice of the Canaanite polytheistic practice. She wrote a wonderful article too. Hopefully, you can still find it on the internet, about establishing a basic polytheistic practice. So remove all the culture stuff out of it for 5 seconds, and let's talk about it. The basics are some sort of shrine. So even if it's your statue and you're nothing else because that's it, that's all you have, okay. Or if it's just a picture, because some gods don't even have statues, depending on the pantheon you're looking at.
Right.
So they don't have statues, and you can get a picture. If you can't get a picture because there's none of that, you can use a symbol, a shell, a butterfly for like suke. My first symbol of suke, because there was nothing in 2002. Nothing was a butterfly, like a little butterfly on my shrine. That was it. That's all I had of the woman. My beautiful goddess, I had nothing. I was really angry about that. Moving on. So basically, you have something to focus on. So that's what the picture, the statue is for, is to help you establish that.
The focus.
The focus. Get a candle, even if it's a little one, to dedicate to them. So when you light it, you're invoking you're invoking their presence. And then give an offering and pray. And that's really it.
That's really it.
And if you can add some incense, awesome sauce, because that makes it even better. Like, right. You can add some incense, great. And that's how you start. If the gods want something more nuanced, you will be guided. If you want to, practice the Hellenic, do it. Because I know for me, when I first started with the Hellenic portion, it opened up so many doors for me. And you will know. You have to pay attention to whether or not it's working for you.
Right.
It doesn't work for everybody.
And for us here in the West, so much of our culture is based on Greek and Roman.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from our laws to our religion. Just everything is based on that. So I'm sure the information about Greek culture was much easier to find in comparison to other cultures that are out there.
And sometimes you don't even know which god is speaking to you. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have any idea at all, and then you have no way of checking out cultural reference, then at least you have this basic way of connecting. And then you can later on, if you want to really dive deeper, because to me, to explore the Hellenic is because you are interested primarily in those particular gods. And if that's what your focus is, then you should absolutely look up the cultural, and the way of how they honor their deities, because that teaches you what you need to know.
Right.
And you can.
I want to interject here too, because I know a question is going to come up, and it may not come up right now. It may come up later on after people have replayed this. It's going to be this idea of, no. I've been instructed to not just create an ambiguous altar to a spirit I'm not sure of, just because I have a feeling that something is trying to reach out to me, because it could be dangerous, or it could be something of not of this world that or intends me harm, and I don't want to give offerings or create an ambiguous sort of just simple altar to just anything. And I just want to interject here, and you can also, reply to that if you want to, but for me, my opinion of that, because I know it's going to come up. It always does. Do not approach your spirituality with any kind of fear.
Absolutely.
Do not do that. If you are approaching your spiritual work with fear, with doubt, with nervousness, with untrusting just feelings of yourself, and this was why you had mentioned it at the very, very beginning, before embarking on any of this, is knowing yourself, knowing what belongs to you and what is external from you, and being able to commune with that. But if you're approaching that with an untrusting, doubtful sense, you're going to have problems. Of course you're going to have problems.
You're going to attract that.
You're going to attract it right off the bat.
You do attract a lot of the energy that you put out. It's just the way it is, it can't be helped a lot of the time.
And I'm sorry, but a lower vibrational energy, an energy that intends you harm, you'll feel that. You'll know the difference.
Exactly. Gods are the highest energy there is.
Oh my goodness. Angels, gods.
Exactly. Those are all
different kind of feel.
Well, that's one of the reasons why, a lot of people have the practice of incense, ring a bell.
Right.
Because you're basically chasing, the idea is you're cleansing the space of those kinds of negative energies that can't exist in that plane. Once you've changed the energy of the space, then
they can't be present.
They can't be present.
Right.
Is the idea behind that.
And once again brings us full circle to the earlier conversation about creating these ritualistic practices for yourself, establishing those practices from jump and sticking to it, being committed to it.
And when you establish those practices, you create in yourself a clean space.
Exactly.
Because you are, without those practices, you are more prone, more susceptible to the lower negative energy stuff.
Right.
The practice of keeping right relationship with the gods raises us up. And those energies is less likely, if at all, to be an issue.
It's true. I mean, even in your day-to-day life, tell me, girl, I know that this happens to you because it happens to me too. You know how, when you are on a spiritual high, when your vibe is just up there, if you ever notice that you go out and you're walking somewhere and you walk into a room with some just petty-ass people, they immediately leave. They can't handle being in the same room as you. It's like they get so uncomfortable, and you get one of two responses. You either get a very hostile response where they're up in your face and they're talking smack, or they just leave because they can't be in your presence because you vibe so high. I know that's happened to me.
I haven't had that particular reaction yet. But I won't put anything out. But what I feel happens is sometimes you can raise the energy of the room and raise them.
That is very, very true if they're open to it.
If they're open to it. If they're determined, then there's nothing you can do.
Some people just want to stay where they're at, but it's true.
That's their choice. Everyone has that freedom.
Yeah, but it's true. You can totally raise people up for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Because
the
energy is
presence, if you will.
Yeah, it's flexible. It's not in this hardcore. It's a mutable situation.
Well, it also depends on if you're an empath and you are very susceptible to taking in people's stuff. That's also why you may feel people's negative stuff a lot more.
For sure.
Not everyone is an empath, but if they are, then
yeah, it's no fun.
I know
it's no fun sometimes.
Me too. But yeah, that's why if you are aware of that, you cleanse. Especially water. Water's fantastic for empaths. For sure.
I'm doing a 9-day purification situation right now. I'm right in the middle of it. Tonight will be my 3rd night. You saw me do part of it earlier, and I'll do the rest before I go to bed. And it's true. Sometimes you just need to at least twice a year do an extended, long purification ritual.
When I back in 2013, I had no concept of cleansing. And then one day in 2013,
that was a big year for you.
Yes, it was. That was, I was taught how to create the holy water. I had learned it in the Hellenic as well.
By them or by a person?
By a person.
Okay.
But also from Helion. But the first time I started using it, Helion was the group that I had joined back in the late 2000s. They are an American-based group that teaches people the Hellenic path.
Okay.
Great group. They post like the Hellenic calendar online and
nice.
They hold monthly libations to each one of the Olympians. So like right now, every second Saturday of the month, they hold a libation to a particular deity depending on the month. Like this one was Aphrodite. This month Aphrodite for Greek. For those who are wondering why I'm saying it that way, that's how you say it in the Greek. So they have a fantastic calendar for the Greeks.
Nice. I'll make sure to put a link for that as well, for those of you who are in New York.
Well, it's an online-based group, so it doesn't matter.
Oh, that's awesome. So you can do it right. What is it, like a FaceTime?
No, well, actually, yeah. I think they do have a FaceTime as well. Or they schedule it on Facebook. I don't know. I haven't seen it since I had to leave in 2013.
But you were talking about cleansing.
Right. So the cleansing part was, once I did it, I felt like lighter than I had in years. I didn't even realize all the weight I had been walking around with until I cleansed.
Dude, I bet you your posture even changed.
Yeah, it was like this whole, like, I didn't even know that I was walking like this until it wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, what happened? Like, that's how you know that this stuff is real. Because
stuff is real.
Because just the physical sensations is enough. But
I mean, we're electromagnetic creatures.
Yes, exactly.
You know, we actually vibrate. We feel everything.
Everything
so
is vibration.
Sure.
In the universe.
For sure.
Everything.
So let's talk about some gossip.
There's gossip.
So this was a question that I know I've asked you a million times before in the past, but that was just for me.
Okay.
This is for everyone else. So there's a debate, not a debate, but there's a discussion going on about living versus dead traditions, right?
Yes.
And this idea of, a living tradition is, at least according to these individuals, in the community having this debate, that a living tradition is something that has a lineage, that is passed down orally, that has an unbroken chain, right? And that the traditions and that the stuff being passed down has pretty much stayed the same, with maybe a few minor quirks here and there, changes here and there, just to kind of come into the 21st century, right? But for the most part, it's an unbroken chain. Versus a dead tradition, which are, I know, the terminology.
I'm like, wait, what?
The terminology is quite insulting, but
it's meant to be.
This idea of a dead tradition is, just like you had said, it's this idea of Reconstructionism, of taking things from the past that are no longer being utilized today in its original form because there was no one around to pass that down. The line had broken at some point. So the reason why they call it a dead tradition is that, you have to fill in the gaps because there are pieces of it that haven't been discovered by archaeology yet, or haven't been passed down, or haven't been. So this idea of, it's not a legitimate thing, it's not a real tradition because you're making it up as you go. You have to fill it in. How do you feel about that? Because technically, with the Greek tradition, there are bits and pieces of it that we don't have access to, that there are bits and pieces of it that you do have to fill in. So how do you feel about that? Because I personally think that it shouldn't make a difference, that it really shouldn't make a difference. And I'll give my opinion about that at some other later point, but how do you feel about that?
Well, my first response to that is every tradition started out with nobody knowing anything and complete and utter guidance from the gods and spirits alone.
Say it.
Every single one. Now,
it started somewhere.
Yeah, it started somewhere with nobody knowing jack. Okay? That's the first thing. It's not these traditions' faults that their lines were sundered, and they shouldn't be penalized by those traditions that managed to survive the onslaught of what happened in this world. I don't think, to me, a living tradition, when I heard that years ago, it was basically said to me that way because they wanted me to keep respecting the way that those traditions had been set up.
Of course.
Right? So
of course.
you don't
so
want
respect
to...
the tradition, respect,
right.
yeah,
so
definitely.
you don't want to like, what's the word that they use? I can't think of the word right now, but you don't want to, I just had it too. You don't want to take that like piece of that tradition and make it your own without honoring the rest of it. That's right. That was the original mentality. So when you first said, you told me dead tradition today, and I'm like, wait, what? That's a thing now?
It's so a thing. It's
what
so
are you
annoying.
talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, so okay, so to me, there are no dead traditions. A true living religion is one that is constantly evolving like flowing water. There are no dead traditions. Because as long as somebody is trying to walk that path, it's alive. It may be just one person. That's all it takes. Because all is necessary is for somebody to be following it again. Does that person have particular challenges because the line was broken? Yes.
Of course.
But even if that line wasn't broken, a true living religion has to evolve with the times. You know, what does not evolve dies.
That's nature.
That's exactly. Nature. What stays stagnant will eventually die. It has to evolve with the needs. You know, a religion, I shouldn't say spirituality, a religion is based not just upon the connection to deity, but the needs of the humans. You know, that's what they're for. It's not just, you know, about let's connect to the gods. It's about what we get out of it too. That's why they create these traditions. They also have these traditions because they have the tried and true. They have the tried and true, and those things should be honored. It's a good thing to do. You need to learn how, and we were talking about this, you need to learn how to walk before you can run. You need to learn how to crawl before you can walk. That's the great thing about following a particular path for, you know, forever as long as you are called to do so.
Right.
However, if people want to, and keep what's tried and true, because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Somebody did it a while ago.
Right.
And if it works, use it.
It works, yeah.
But, you know, the whole idea of saying living versus dead is this whole elitist attitude.
It's so elitist.
And why my question is this, why do you even have to say that? What, and you know, this is a good soul question.
Good soul question.
Good soul
yes,
question.
I agree.
Why do you feel the need to downplay or put down somebody else's spiritual path? What are you getting out of this? You don't have to, your religion or your path doesn't have to be the only way in order for it to be valid for you. If it works for you and if it works for thousands of others, that's great, but it's not going to work for everybody. There are many paths to the gods, and we should honor every single one of them. Mm-hmm. Because no one religion has all the truth. You know, and that's part of the problem is we think, no, we don't use the word and enough. We really don't.
I know, you were saying
really
about
we're
the
all
archetypal.
Either or. No, that limits you. That limits how you can really take in the wisdom of so many different, you know, spiritual practices. There's so much, you know, that other people have discovered that I have found useful. I have found spiritual wisdom in not just like Catholicism, but Buddhism and you know, Wicca has some great stuff too. And you know, there's a couple of things from the Cometics that I heard, you know, and the Greeks, like, there's just so much from so many different places. The chakras is an Eastern mentality. You know, not one religion has all the answers. Right. And to this whole elitist mentality is more because I think as humans, we need to feel like we found the one way, so we know we're not wasting our time, or we're doing it right. You know, but what's right is what's in here. What calls to you is in here. You shouldn't be doing it because somebody else told you that was the right way.
Exactly.
You know, you should be doing it because that's what speaks to you.
Even this conversation tonight, this is
exactly
entirely your experience, entirely your journey.
There is a wonderful saying that I used to have in my email. It was an ancient kahuna saying, or at least that's what they told me. Kahuna is a teacher in Hawaii. And it says, take all that I say and throw away all that does not strike within you a recognition. Because you do not find wisdom outside of yourself. you find it within.
That is 100% true.
And that's, you know, the whole idea of, I don't believe, when I think of a living tradition, my concern is to not take something and co-opt it. That's the word I'm looking for. Co-opt it for my own use without honoring why that evolved the way that it did.
Why it survived.
Why it survived and why it evolved.
Yeah.
You know, that's the danger. That's where people get angry.
Right.
With that. But that being said, just because these other lines were broken doesn't mean that they're not valid. They're working for those people. Yeah. You know, and they're how we connect to these other forms of, you know, these other deities, I should say, not forms, these other deities that are out there. You know, I think it's great that your tradition wasn't broken, but not all of us have that. Yeah. And even if we did, we still should rise to the challenge of, this is great, we figured out so much, we still have a lot to figure out. We don't know all the answers.
Yeah.
You know, and you'll spend your life looking for them.
Lifetimes.
Yeah.
I actually just did a video on this yesterday or the day before. Lifetimes.
Yes, exactly. It's a lifetime. And that's part of the joy. It really is.
It really is.
It is a fantastic
that the mystery will always be there, and it's just like, it's like chasing a dragon, you know? It's like you'll always just be clawing at it, but it's so much fun. It doesn't have to be a tedious, like, uphill battle.
It's also very wise to realize you will never know it all, and there are some things that are only for the gods.
Right.
And that's okay.
So, speaking of the gods, so, again, another question I have asked you in the past, and I'm gonna ask you again, and you kind of touched on it before, with this idea of soft polytheism versus hard polytheism, and this debate going on about, are the gods real, right? So this whole thing of, are they real? Are they figments of our imagination? Are they archetypal, you know, things? Because that was a huge trend for like it still kind of is, actually.
It's still
a big trend of this
debate.
idea that all gods are one god, that they and then there's another layer to that too, of like, well, why are we calling them gods if they're so humanistic in their personalities? You know, shouldn't we reserve the word God for something that creates and something that is like this otherworldly thing? You know, so there's a double layer with that. It's like, first,
like, wait, what?
First, are the gods even real, or are they archetypes of one god? And if they are real, why should we refer to them as gods if they're so human in their nature, and there's always like these hierarchies of, you know?
Okay, so this is a very nuanced type of question. I'm going to give you my opinion on this.
I want your opinion. That's why you here, Cole. That's why I'm here, actually, now that I think about it.
Okay. Are the gods real? Yes. The gods were here before humans. The gods will be here after humans. The gods are most definitely real. I have experienced them. I know others who have experienced them. A lot of that is because we were open to being able to experience them. Now, like I told you, I could not really feel my gods until I knew that they were individuals with their own agency. Mm. Now, the reason why we say it like that is because it's important to know that they actually have a mind of their own. Like, Eros is different from Hermes, is different from Psyche, is different from Odin, is different. Like, it's important to know that. If you do not want to believe that, that's fine. You don't have to believe that. But you can't, a wonderful line in Conversations with God says, if you want to get to Seattle, you can't go towards San Jose. It depends on what you're trying to experience. If you want to experience the gods, like completely, if you will, then my experience has been, if you believe they are not real, you're not going to have that experience, because what you believe leads to your experience.
Full circle.
You go full circle there, right? So if you believe that the gods are all one god, then you're going to get like this really big sense of something, and you're not going to be able to like really touch it. It's going to be very, very vague. Because if you're looking at a forest, that's very vague. It's too big. You know, if you focus in on one God, which, by the way, every God is as big as the universe itself. Like a God is beyond, one God is beyond our comprehension. All gods, even more so, are beyond our comprehension. So,
but I like that rainforest analogy, you know, focusing on maybe a tree.
Yeah.
All the nuances of that tree.
But realizing, realizing at the same time that all those trees are worthy of honor, right? They're all gods. Now, the idea of the humanistic nature of deity comes to us from our myths, right? So we have to remember that myths have several purposes. Myths are sacred stories. They teach us wonderful truths. They help us connect to our gods. And I totally, completely advocate that when you decide to work with any deity, one of the first things you do is you pick up their stories and you read about them, because you should know who that god is or how that god has been seen by others, and even maybe even experienced by others. But the other portion of myth is that myths were written by humans. And whenever anyone is talking to you or writing something down, they are going through their own filter. So that means your filter is basically all the stuff that makes you you, the things you believe, the things you've gone through. So, you know, like imagine like a sieve, I think it's, well, not a sieve, a sifter. You can only get what's going to get through those holes, right? The cleaner your sifter or your filter, the more you'll get. Some mythologies were written with an agenda in mind from the human perspective. And a lot of times the way that we connect to something is by looking at it through our own lens, through our own selves. Gods have personalities, and they have, you know, things that make them laugh and things that upset them and things that, you know, all those different things that we have too, but they're not like us. Like, that's a huge mistake to assume in any way that they are like us. They are not like the humans, because
so emotions and preferences and stuff, is that something that's transcendental as well?
What do you mean by transcendental?
Like, so the gods experience emotions and preferences and likes and dislikes, right, the same way humans do, but is it but they're not the same, they're different.
They're not. Okay. Think of it this way. Okay. If a human is experiencing emotions from here to here, and this is the highest a human can go, a god experiences emotions from here to God knows where. They don't even start on the same level we are. They look at things differently. They have a different way of, because how could they when they don't have our human experience? They have a different way of experiencing the universe because they're gods. They have immortality. They have the responsibility of the universe on their shoulders. You know, it's their job to maintain the balance, you know, of energies in this universe. That's
so these myth writers are trying to take these incomprehensible ideas and just bring them back down to a more manageable state,
to something we can understand and connect to. Right. And they are telling us and teaching us incredibly sacred stories and myths, you know, and lessons for us to learn. And we use the gods a lot to symbolize these things we can't really put our fingers on, because we're trying to explain the unexplainable, and we utilize the symbols and what the gods' energies represent to us to understand not just what's going on a universal plane as much as we can, which is so little, but understanding ourselves, which is where the archetypes actually come from, is humans trying to understand ourselves. Remember, archetypes come from psychology. Psychology is the study of the soul. The study of the soul is understanding you. Like, that's where those things come from. So if you're trying to understand, you know, like if I tried to explain to you what fire is and you don't know what fire is, but I then try to explain this particular deity to you because you're blind or whatever, you don't know what fire is. I try to explain something. I tell you a story. It gives you an idea of fire, but you're not going to know what fire is unless you actually experience fire. Like, that's just. But you're trying to wrap your mind around what cannot be completely understood. We just trying, and that's okay. It's try all you, and you'll get some really great insights. But you know, the idea that why why should we honor them as gods if they have these humanistic qualities? Well, they don't. They don't. If they feel rage, it's for totally different reasons than we do. If they feel sadness, it's for totally different reasons than we do. And, God's emotions are deeper, stronger. Like, there's so much, when a God loves, a God loves. Like, there's I think as humans, we're still learning what love is. Like how to really love something as humans. I think that's part of our path and part of our journey as humans. I don't think we're really taught that as children. We're taught that love is conditional. Like, you just start there. Gods already know that.
And I mean, ultimately, as a priestess and as someone who is devoted to gods, I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, all they really ask for is your love.
Yes, they ask for love and devotion. And they also, depending on who you are, they may also ask you to work for them and help them with their own agendas. So agenda has a loaded word to it.
I was going to say,
there's
can
a
you
lot
clarify
of
that?
Agenda, because
that sounds like
what I am up to.
Yeah.
But don't forget, a God's agenda is going to be very high on the scale.
Right.
It's not like us. Like a God's agenda is about whatever is serving the universe. Whatever it is that their portion is to do what they've taken on, what they decided is important to them, whatever that is. And we were talking about wars between deities earlier and stuff like that. I talked to you my long story. That can happen, but I've also seen that they'll put their stuff aside and negotiate.
As you've experienced.
And I forgot where I read it. It was fantastic. They were like, don't play one god against the other because they'll just work. They'll just combine together and just
set you straight right quick. Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
They will.
Something like that. I read that somewhere. I wish I remember
is too much.
But that's a lot of that is saying that.
What about a devotion to a god of destruction? And then now you're working on the behalf of that god.
So why would that god want to destroy stuff, right?
Right. Their purpose would be, when you're looking at their role in the bigger, grander scheme, right? This idea of a god of chaos or a god of destruction or a god of this, in terms of their grand role, it is very vital and important. But on a smaller scale, that human who is devoting themselves to that god and now working from that space of chaos and from that space of destruction in order to work on their behalf, on a smaller scale, on a day-to-day life, that person can be extremely dangerous to the rest of us. Or how do you, is that something?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It depends on, so if I worked for a god.
Hypothetically,
the way that you look at that is to embrace chaos and destruction, meaning that you see its sacred purpose. That's how you do that.
Not that you go around just burning stuff.
No. That's not.
But see,
it's
that
about
gets,
embodying
I can see
this energy.
Extremism. So I'm doing hypotheticals in terms of extremism and the way people
think. A good
think.
friend of mine, his name is Langston. He once said to me,
I love him.
I know, he's great.
Oh my gosh.
He's great. And he does a lot.
I got to do an interview. Langston, if you're watching, I'm gonna call you up very soon.
He talked about once with me how keeping our heart clean. So when we were talking earlier about knowing who we are when we work with a god, there's another reason for that. Because if you are clean, the god's energy will come through you cleanly. So, for example, some people work with Dionysus. Dionysus, for those who don't know, is the god in Greece of wine and ecstasy. Okay, he invented the making of wine. A person who is an alcoholic may have trouble with Dionysus's energy if they don't address what makes them an alcoholic in the first place. That energy is going to come out all weird and wrong, and it's going to be harmful to them.
Right. I see.
The gods' energy themselves are pure. It's how we take them that pervert things.
And it has a lot to do with what you were talking about before with the filter.
Yes,
and also
exactly.
Being a vessel.
Yes.
Because
if you want to carry the God's energy into the world, you do it by cleaning yourself out and being as hollow a reed as possible. That's the, I think he was the one who actually said that to me. You want to be hollow as a reed. You want to get as much as yourself out of the way, if you will.
Ego too. Ego.
But that's what we're talking about. We're talking about ego.
Yeah.
In order to really be the whole, you know, the vessel, the clean pathway. Because otherwise, these energies, if you know, they can, like a god or goddess of chaos, can really mess with you if you don't understand. You know what the honoring of that, what that means. You know, and a lot of times the gods challenge us, and they're supposed to. They challenge our beliefs. They challenge our fears. They challenge a lot about us. But if we come at them with, I know that you're like the pure, if you will, energy, there's nothing wrong with you. It's here.
It's here. Yeah.
It's here.
It's a reverence. It's definitely a reverence, and
this,
and this surrender of self in a way.
There's a very big surrendering of self to that, and just understanding the gods are not humans. That is so essential.
And I think that's another thing that I wanted to clarify, because a lot of people put them in the same category as spirits.
No,
they're not, because spirits, for the most part, the majority of spirits were once alive. So that's one way of saying it. Some of them were alive,
right.
And some of those spirits, and those who aren't alive, are within, around, nearby planes of existence.
So they have their own jobs.
Yeah, they have their own jobs.
Protecting
versus
certain
gods
places, certain people.
Yeah, you know, are in some other situation.
The gods are probably, if I had to look at it in a food chain, if you will, perspective, the gods are here. They're the top. Mm-hmm. It's their job to maintain the balance. Mm-hmm. And the spirits serve that functionality as well.
They're more, because I noticed that the spirits are much more easily accessible energies, because they're so nearby, because they intertwine, they can affect our day-to-day stuff. They have their own agendas as well. And
everybody does.
And sometimes those agendas aren't nice. So, I mean, they have their own, and they very much affect our lives. Versus the gods, you really have to work to get them to a lot of petitioning, a lot of offering, a lot of working on self, like a lot to get to them, versus the spirits.
Because how can we face them face to face till we have faces?
Yeah.
That's why. It's a journey to get this high. It is. It's part of the work. That's the work. That's the sacred work. Your magnum opus, if you will. Yes. And everyone is doing that on some level, whether they're aware of it or not. That's what we're all here to do. We're all here to experience who we truly are, and to get back to that place. And we all have many different paths to getting to that. They're all valid, as long as it's what's in here is what matters. And if you want to worship a god of chaos, I had a friend who worshipped the goddess of discord, Eros, fantastic deity. Total respect, right? For Eros, total respect for Eros. She started the Trojan War, like awesome sauce to Eros is. I don't personally, work with her, but I have great reverence for what she represents, for her duty in the universe, if you will, because don't forget, without chaos and without destruction, life cannot renew itself.
And renewal.
It's all about respecting the cycle, and not fearing any portion of it. And all, and there are cycles that we know of, and there are cycles we don't know of. But in order for things to renew and to grow and to, like, for example, I've always felt with my own heart, this is kind of part of it, but not really, with my own heart, whenever I feel it break because I was disappointed, that is my opportunity to expand my heart even more and make it bigger. Because I have broken, when I feel a broken heart, the heart was like this big, and it broke because I was disappointed or whatever, but it's also breaking because I'm expanding.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of it too.
Wow. I love that.
And once I realize that, then it's okay to go through those different, that's why I call myself Phoenix now. It's the name my gods gave me, and it's because I kept rising up again. I understood a deeper aspect of Psyche, which is the soul. The human soul always rises back up. Always comes back. That we are not able to be destroyed by our circumstances. We can we can rise again. The fire of the phoenix is love. If we can utilize that and rise up again, we will be renewed. But sometimes that requires destruction. So the phoenix burns, right? It becomes nothing but ash. That's part of the process, and respecting that. But especially knowing that I want to be a hollow reed. I want to know to get my own stuff, not because I'm bad, but because I'm not bad. It's just that I have to know me. And then I also have to be open enough for my gods to come through into my life.
To elevate you.
Right. And to elevate. Which by praying and connecting elevates you right there.
Right there.
Is an elevation. You always feel that. I don't know if I'm sure you do when you're doing work.
Oh yeah.
You can feel the higher energy, and
it's almost like if your feet. Thank goodness your feet is on the ground, because you can almost feel yourself coming out of it and lifting out of your own feet.
And I think that's why a lot of us do like meditation.
Yes.
That's why some people do, I think, yoga. Like there's so many many different practices that humans have developed in order to get there, and it's so wonderful.
So I know we didn't have any questions on the Facebook Live. If you do have any, now's your time to do it. In the meantime, I think I want to end it with that, unless you have a closing thing, because I know there were a few things, and I feel like we went through it all.
I think we covered a lot of.
I think so too. Was there anything you wanted to add or to close out, especially to those solitary practitioners out there who are trying to find themselves and find their purpose in their role and in their spirituality and in their religion? If you have anything you want to say towards that. If not, then how can people get a hold of you if you want them to? Or you can always go through me and I'll pass.
I would say go through you first.
Go through me. If you have any questions for Phoenix, go through me, my email, my Facebook. I will pass along the question and we will answer it at a later time, okay?
My only thing that I would leave everybody with is one of the biggest things that I learned on my path is that the very first thing is to just love the gods.
Love the gods.
Don't have an agenda. We talk about agenda having this, negative connotation. It's very difficult to have true engagement if you're coming at them because I know I can get something out of you.
Oof. Well, you can smell those people from a mile away. You can
totally smell them. You want nothing to do with them, right?
Oh my gosh.
You know what? Gods are the same way.
Yeah.
And
if you think we're perceptive of that, please.
Right. Exactly. I think if your intention is to create true engagement with your God, then do it out of purity of heart. Just do it because you want to experience love for yourself. You want to, one of the great things I think that gods give to us humans is a target to love. We have that with each other, with our friends and our family, but there's a certain kind of experience with love when you love God. And that to me is so important because the books that are out there, not all of them, but a few books out there, they teach you to be mercenary with the gods. And I hate that because I think that stops you from truly having true engagement with them. I think anything else that comes later will come later. Because you love them, you'll want to maybe do more for them or with them, and vice versa. But when you're first starting out, give offerings because this is giving a gift. It's right relationship with the gods, and it's also this is my chance to experience loving my deity, loving my God, giving a little bit of myself, even if it's no more than a cup of water, because that's all you can afford. That's perfect.
Yeah.
It's all about how you put that offering down. It's all about the intention of what you do, and to be conscious of that. We are conscious creators. A lot of us walk around sleepwalking.
Girl, say it.
And we have to become conscious creators. We have the power, and we have to be aware that we have that power by waking up and seeing the power that we ourselves hold. A lot of people come to the gods because they want power. Not a lot, but some people do. But we have power of our own. We don't have to do that. We can just engage with the gods to engage with them because we want to experience opening ourselves up on all of our levels, challenging ourselves to rise up, to be greater than we currently are, to be, to feel and love and be more than we currently can be. And to experience all that by giving ourselves that way. And that's what I would suggest, or I would say, is simply just, and when you're first starting out, that's so important.
For the love of the gods.
That's
it.
Was there any questions on it?
No, not that I see, but thank you guys so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Yes, thank you.
It was a nice, long conversation. I have no idea how long it was, but it was awesome. And thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, you're awesome. Thank you. Oh. All right, guys. Have a nice night.